Right now, something in your chest is contracting for roughly the 600 millionth time today, and you have never once had to think about it. You did not build that rhythm. You inherited it from something that had no brain to keep time with, no nerves to feel anything at all, and no reason to ever stop. In 2022, scientists pulled the actual fossilized heart of the first animal ever known to have one out of a slab of rock in China. It is over 500 million years old. Here is the stranger part. Take one living heart cell out of your body right now. Put it completely alone in a dish with nothing else, and it will keep beating by itself. So what did the very first heartbeat actually feel like? The honest answer is worse than you think. Let's start at the beginning. And the beginning is a body with no heart at all. For most of the history of life, nothing needed one. A single cell doesn't need a pump. It just soaks nutrients in and pushes waste out through its own skin. Even the earliest animals kept that habit. Sponges have no heart, no blood, no vessels of any kind. Water just flows through them. A jellyfish has no heart either. Its whole body is thin enough that everything it needs can simply diffuse from the outside in. That works, right up until a body gets too thick to diffuse through. Then the middle starts starving while the edges are fine. And somewhere around 600 million years ago, a line of soft-bodied worms ran into exactly that problem. Their solution wasn't a heart. Not yet. It was a tube, a muscular vessel running down the length of the body, squeezing in a wave, pushing fluid from one end to the other. No chambers, no valves, just muscle contracting in sequence, moving blood the same way your intestines move food. That single trick, a tube that squeezes, is the ancestor of every heart that has ever existed, including yours. The problem is that soft tissue almost never fossilizes. For decades, this whole story was reconstructed from embryos and guesswork, never actually seen. Until 2022, when a team led by paleontologist Xiaoyama took a fossil that had been sitting in a museum drawer for years and put it under an industrial CT scanner. The fossil was a Fuxianhuia protensa, a shrimp-like creature from the Chengjiang site in southern China, dead for 520 million years. Buried fast, in fine mud, low in oxygen, the exact conditions that occasionally freeze soft tissue in place instead of destroying it. And there it was, a long, thin structure running the length of the body, with branching vessels feeding out to the limbs, in almost exactly the same position a heart sits in a modern shrimp today. The oldest heart ever found. Not a guess, not a model. An actual organ 500 million years old, preserved well enough to measure. Here's the part that gets missed. This animal had a functioning circulatory system before it had anything resembling a brain worth the name. It had a working pump before it had eyes. The heart is not a late addition to a body. It is one of the very first things a complicated body needs, because size is a problem faster than thinking is. That accounts for the tube. It does not explain the beat, because a tube that squeezes on command is one thing. A tube that squeezes on its own, in perfect rhythm, without being told to, that's a different problem entirely. And this is where it gets strange. In 1912, a French surgeon named Alexis Carrel cut a fragment of tissue out of a chicken embryo's heart and placed it in a dish of nutrient broth. No nerves attached. No brain giving it orders. No blood vessels connecting it to anything. It kept beating, on its own, for years, tended by lab assistants who fed and cleaned it like a living thing, because in every way that mattered, it was one. Carrel's culture eventually became a scientific legend, and later researchers found the mechanism behind it. Heart muscle cells contain a class of proteins called pacemaker ion channels. They let charged particles drift across the cell's membrane at a steady rate, and that drift builds a tiny electrical charge over and over, automatically. No signal required, no command from anywhere. The cell simply cannot help but build up charge and release it, again and again, forever, as long as it's alive. Put thousands of those cells next to each other, and they don't just beat individually, they synchronize. One cell's pulse nudges its neighbors, and within a few beats, an entire clump of heart tissue is contracting as one, in unison, with no conductor. Rhythm is not something a heart is told to do. Rhythm is what heart tissue does by default, the second you leave it alone. So here's what that actually means for the first heartbeat 520 million years ago, in a worm nobody remembers the name of. It didn't start because something decided the animal needed one. It started because a handful of cells did the only thing that kind of cell can do, which is generate a rhythm and refuse to stop. There was no brain yet to register that anything was happening. There was no nervous system built for sensation. The nearest thing to feeling wouldn't evolve for millions of years after the beat itself already existed, which means the first heartbeat happened in complete and total silence. A rhythm with absolutely nobody home to notice it. And here's the part that should actually unsettle you. Your heart started the exact same way, not 500 million years ago, 22 days after you were conceived, before you had a working brain, before anything in you could register pain or light or sound, or your own mother's voice. A cluster of cells folded into a tube, and that tube began contracting on its own, using the same pacemaker channels that Carol's chicken cells used, that the Fuxianhuya used, that every beating heart on Earth uses. You were not there for your own first heartbeat. Nobody is. It happens before the part of you that could witness anything exists. So, what did the first heartbeat feel like? Nothing. That's the honest answer. It felt like nothing to no one because feeling itself hadn't been invented yet. The beat came first, the witness came later, and only because the beat kept going long enough to build one. Every sensation you have ever had, every sound, every ache, every moment of being genuinely afraid or happy or in love, required oxygen delivered by a heart to a brain built out of the same evolutionary lineage that first learned to beat in the dark. For no one, 520 million years before you were anyone at all, the first heartbeat wasn't a feeling. It was the reason feeling became possible. So here's the question I'd actually like answered. If a rhythm can run for 500 million years before anything is around to notice it, how much of what's happening inside you right now do you think you're actually aware of? Tell me in the comments. I don't think there's a clean answer to that one. And the 2022 fossil paper, the Carol chicken heart culture, and the current research on pacemaker ion channels are all linked in the description if you want to go deeper. Thanks for watching.